was sort of about the meaning of Independence Day. Of course, this weekend, or a couple of days, is July 4th, right? So, especially for people born in this country, it's called Independence Day. Now, of course, we all know that means gaining independence from being dominated by another country or an authority, and there can be many ways that people are dominated or enslaved by whatever it is, laws or just other enforced from others. A lot of it's enforced from others. But from the Dhamma point of view, the Dhamma meaning of Independence Day is a little bit different. And the way the Buddha related to, being enslaved or dominated by our own mind. And so this is what I wanted to focus on, in this practice, in the whole practice, you could say, of the Dhamma, and especially of meditation, is to become independent from ignorance, or become independent from a lot of the bad habits and self-destructive habits and our own thoughts that sometimes terrorize us, or at least to give us a lot of anxiety. And in the ultimate sense, even becoming independent of the ego, because a lot of people are also kind of, even though they don't want to admit it, but they're enslaved by their own thoughts of I, me, and mine. And then that causes them to actually do things that they might want to do, but they find themselves not able to resist that. And so the Buddha addressed that too. In fact, some people came to the Buddha and said, Master Gautama, there's the inner tangle and the outer tangle. Who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? And the Buddha's reply was that one who is standing on the firm ground of skillful conduct and develops mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, they succeed in disentangling this tangle. And that's really what the practice of the Dhamma is about, again, especially from the Buddhist perspective. And in our practice of meditation, what we're up against as we sit down and we try to develop our meditation for whatever people are meditating in order to find inner peace, or they're meditating to control their anger, or they're meditating to lower their blood pressure. There's all kind of reasons now that people are becoming interested in meditation. And any and all of those things could be effects, positive benefits and effects of practicing meditation. So what is the outer tangle and the inner tangle? Well, from the Dhamma point of view, the outer tangle is the sensory world, let's say the external sensory world of visible objects, all the nice, pretty, beautiful things that we can see and get pleasure in looking at, and so on. Then also the sounds, various, infinite number of sounds available out there in the world, from the sound of a beautiful song to the sound of a hummingbird flapping its wings, and so on. And also the other senses, things that we smell, taste, even the sensations on our body, all the various either painful sensations or even erotic or pleasurable sensations, which are there too. And so people have become, and then even our own thoughts. You can have pleasant memories that you like to go back and revisit, but there's also then painful memories. And so the mind has become all entangled in this web of the external world, choosing what it likes and what it doesn't like, and getting bound up in the law of karma, basically. The law of karma, or sometimes we call the web of karma, is that very intricate and complex web of connections and interconnections of our mind with the external world. And so the inner tangle is how the mind has gotten caught and also tangled up within its self, even though you don't have to look at the external world. You know, if you're sitting in here meditating and, you know, there's not much external world things going on, your eyes are closed, maybe there's even not too many sounds, but people's mind can go on recreating all those things, all those images and emotions and, you know, memories and likes and dislikes and struggling within their own mind. It's all happening internally. But most of it is connected with the external world. So basically that is one of the main meanings that the Buddha gave to answer that question about the inner tangle and the outer tangle. Now, we can't do a whole lot about the outer tangle, that means the external world, because evolution is, you know, evolved to the point, and you know, and because of impermanence and everything is changing. Largely, I mean, of course, human beings have caused a lot of that external changes in terms of, you know, cities and megacities and all that civilization and so on. But basically, for the average person, they can't really do a whole lot about that. But the inner tangle is the way that we react to that outer world. And that all depends on our understanding and on our training, and especially on the understanding of what it is and how it's all sort of evolved. And so the Buddha's teaching on the Noble Eightfold Path is essentially the steps of training the body and mind to gradually disentangle that tangle, and to disengage our mind from going out to the you know, the world around us in an unwholesome way, in getting caught in it for no real important reason, simply because we haven't been trained ourselves. Now, I usually give the example of, you know, when a young baby is, well, when a person is conceived in the womb, that consciousness is developing, is that one cell organism multiplies in the space of 9 months, multiplies billions of times to create this human body. And the consciousness that there was the spark of life at the moment of conception went into every succeeding cell of the body, connected with the nervous system, and is connected in its own internet. But basically that was occurring in the present moment. For 9 months in the womb, the baby's mind was just occupied and inundated with these powerful life force vibrations of creation. We're developing this very complex body. And basically that was occurring in the present moment. And when the baby is born, its mind is still kind of in the present moment and connected to the body, connected to all those vibrations, of all those cellular vibrations. You could see even molecular or even atomic vibrations of what the body is comprised of. But anyway, basically it's in the present moment. When it comes out, then that's when it gets contacted with the external world. And the parents give the baby a name. And then all the relatives come over and, pick it up and hug it and kiss it and give it all kinds of attention. As it grows older, people, bringing it all kind of things. And little by little, when it learns language, it starts getting entangled with the objects. Such as, I usually give the example of, the sweet grandmother comes by and gives the baby its first chocolate. And the baby tastes that chocolate and gets a pleasurable feeling from the sweet chocolate, a pleasant sensation. And then maybe it happens 2 or 3 or 4 or more times. And little by little, the baby starts to associate a particular face of the grandmother with the pleasurable feeling. Because every time that same face comes, it's expecting a pleasurable feeling. And in the same way, if an uncle or the father or the grandfather maybe holds the baby a little bit too roughly or doesn't give it anything, then the baby will gradually start to have an indifferent reaction to it. Or if it caused it pain or discomfort, it will associate that particular face with pain or discomfort. And then it will start hoping that the face that gave it a pleasurable feeling will come again in the future. And it hopes that the face or object that gave it a painful feeling will not come again in the future. And the ones that give it a neutral feeling, there probably isn't much reaction to that. But the most important ones are the pleasurable and painful feelings. And then so that is actually the birth of the past and future. And, people think the past and future are some points in time, but from the Dhamma point of view, it's not. From the Dhamma point of view, the past and the future are just thoughts occurring in the present moment, but they're memories of the past. But they're arising from some stimulation. You have a memory of a pleasurable feeling, and then, I want to recreate that again. I want that again. Or you have a painful feeling, or you hear something and it reminds you of something of the past, but that's now occurring in the present too. But then you want to struggle and not get that again. So basically, that's the birth of the past and the future. And every object we come in contact with, that same condition or cycle is occurring. Let's say the cat comes by, and the baby might grab the tail of the cat. The cat might turn around and scratch, and the baby gets scared. And then the baby would have a fear of that cat. Or something else might, his mother gives it a very tender thoughts and, talking to it, caressing it, and taking milk. So it has an attachment to that because it brings a pleasurable feeling. So now the mind of the baby has become entangled with pleasurable and painful sensations. It's getting entangled with wanting pleasurable feelings in the future, and to get away from the painful feelings that it imagines might come to it in the future. And that's what starts creating anxiety. Because all problems basically are problems of the past and the future. You think of any problem that you might have, and 99% of the time it's going to be connected with the past or future, either directly or indirectly. But when the baby, for 9 months in the womb, the mind was in the present moment. And even afterwards, until about 4 to 6 months, baby's mind is still more or less what they call oceanic. There's no sense of an I yet inside. But after everybody starts calling it its name, little Johnny, then little by little the baby starts to look, because it's associated with some name called Johnny that's supposed to be me or this. And then as it wants things in the future, it gets drawn out of the body. Instead of being centered in the body, inundated by all these sensations, life force vibrations, now it's wanting something tomorrow. Or it's fearing that something is going to come tomorrow that it doesn't want. So now its mind has become separated, and it's projecting, and it's losing that intimate connection with the present moment, or that connection to the body, the breathing body, which is our main connection to the present moment, the awareness. So that is really the start of that getting entangled with the objects. And as we grow up, everything we come into contact with, by and large, most of them are things that we've divided everything into things we like or things that we don't like. And of course, there's a whole lot of neutral ones that we don't have one opinion or the other about too much, but they don't really bring us too many problems, because all of our karmic reactions are based upon getting what one wants and and getting what you don't want. It's almost everything from the moment you get up in the morning, the moment you go to sleep at night, almost all of your actions, even the very insignificant small actions, even like blinking, is an action to try to remove an unpleasant feeling. But during the day, many times, you kind of go like this. Hundreds, if not 1,000 times a day, we are making subtle little movements with our body and minds to try to get away from some unpleasant sensation. And many times we try to replace that unpleasant sensation with the pleasurable sensation, even to the extent of those pleasurable sensations are actually causing us harm in one way or another, like creating, bad habits. So out of various, whether it's physical or mental stress, people might pick up a bad habit, right? Like drinking, smoking, drugs, so many other addictions, so many kind of habits and addictions, gambling or whatever. There's so many. I don't have to repeat them all. And largely, that's a way to try to remove some kind of dissatisfaction or discontent with the present moment. And the reason is we've lost that connection to the present moment, which is itself a complete satisfaction. When the mind is resting in the present moment, without any thoughts of the past or future, then it's complete. And it's a very wonderful feeling, because there's no worries, comparisons, judgments, likes or dislikes, no fear of not getting what you want or getting what you don't want. So the mind is basically in a state of contentment. But again, we have lost that through the course of growing up, and of course, that had to happen. Of course, that's the only way that the mind grows, is through contact with the world. But anyway, that is how this inner tangle and the outer tangle has concurrently grown in the mind. And that's why these people came to the Buddha and asked them or him, how does one succeed in disentangling this tangle? In other words, to learn how to gradually become more united and grounded in the present moment without needing so much stimulation from the external world. Because when you start getting involved in the external world, there's a law of karma then you have to worry about. Because your energies are going out in the external world, speaking language, doing physical things, even thinking, and that has its repercussions. And I've talked about that it's like the law of gravity. So the law of karma is sort of like the law of gravity. If you throw something up, what happens? Does it come down? As long as you're on the earth, right? If you're on the moon, it may not come down, or at least not so quickly, or in outer space. But because we're all on the earth, we're all bound by that sort of law of karma. So if you throw something out of your mouth, that goes out in the world, goes through other people's ears, causes a reaction in them, and then it can come back immediately, or as a delayed reaction, in what I like to equate with Newton's law, an equal or opposite reaction. So the law of gravity and Newton's law, these are considered kind of laws of physics, I guess. but the law of karma is very similar to that. If you throw something out with your body, like punch somebody in the nose or stick out your tongue at them or flip them the finger or something, it's going to cause a reaction and come back to you as either some kind of pain or some kind of pleasure or some kind of indifferent feeling. And so if you put out negative energy in the course of the Dhamma, if you put out actions and speech motivated by selfish greed or anger and hatred and so on, or delusions, we're called greed, hatred, and delusion, then this will cause reactions out in the world and will come back to you as in a similar way. So just briefly, that's how the inner and outer tangle is very much connected with that law of karma, which is it's a natural law. Again, very similar to laws of physics. So the Buddha understood that very well, and that was his practice, his whole effort in him teaching the Dhamma for the remainder of his life was to try to help people understand that almost all of their problems are actually stemming from their own mind, through these seeds that have been planted, way back. If it wasn't just in this life, of course, within the Dhamma teachings, that this mind is even before we were born in this life, it has accumulated karma even from the past. Now, people who don't believe in that, they have a harder time accepting that. But so how does one succeed in disentangling this tangle? And that's really where the practice of meditation plays its most important part. But the Buddha broke it down into also the Noble Eightfold Path, into the practices of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. And most of the pain and suffering that comes to us in life, again, can be traced back to not living in accordance with the laws of nature. And that means living out of harmony with the law of karma. And actually, the Buddha expressed this in the first two verses of the Dhammapada, in which he said, all actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. If you act or speak with an impure mind, then suffering will follow, as the cart wheel follows the foot of the ox. And in the same vein, if one acts or speaks with a pure state of mind, then comfort and happiness will follow, as your shadow follows you around. So right there in those two twin verses really sums up the teachings of the Dhamma in terms of what is the causes of suffering, and what are the causes and conditions for happiness. But it lies within our own mind and the way that we've been conditioned to react to the outer world, and even to react within our own mind as well. So that's why the 5 precepts, we'll talk about that more later, but I'm not going to go into it too much right now, but why the precepts to abstain from killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and intoxicating the mind. These are considered the harmful karmic actions, because when you do those things out in the world, there's going to be reactions. Does anybody doubt that? You go out and start killing the things, especially other people, there's going to be reactions. If you lie to them, if you slander them, if you steal their things, if you intoxicate the mind and go out and get in a crash and kill somebody or maim somebody else, people are going to be looking for you. So right there is self that are most of the causes of individual suffering as well as collective social suffering too. And just those 5 kind of actions of body, speech, and mind. And so, why can't people follow? So that is the foundation. If anybody is interested in learning how to gain more inner peace, one has to first look at how they are acting and reacting in the world around them. And especially in terms of those 5 what are called harmonious actions. Because when you commit those, negative actions, that causes reaction in the world around us, and we all know that. So when you stop doing that, then you're not really harming a fly. There's little to blame you for. You told a lie, you stole that, you hurt that person. Isn't that what so much of the conflict in the world is about? Even within one's own family and the wider society, out to world wars and so on. So that's why the Buddha considered that to be sort of the foundation. Because until a person can, to some extent, weaken those powerful forces, or those habits, I should say they're habits, but they're forces, then we're going to continue to keep accumulating more problems for ourselves. So a lot of people, they want to be happy. It's very interesting, the Buddhist teaching is about the 4 Noble Truths. In the 4 Noble Truths, the Buddha mentions suffering 4 times. That suffering exists in the world. Then the cause of suffering. Now, suffering can be brought to an end. And then the way to live, think, and meditate, it will help to distangle, and arrive back in a more inner peaceful mind, which is living more in harmony with the laws of nature. So that Eightfold Path is the way that those living by those guidelines. Prefer not to call them precepts, because people hear precepts and they think some religious connotation, right? So harmonious existence is probably a more harmonious action. That means actions that are that are in harmony with the laws of nature, that don't cause waves in the world, at least the negative waves. And that way, at least, the mind can be more calm and peaceful. But then there's more to it than in that, and we'll be talking more about that later. now coming back to the practice of meditation, actually, after following, trying to live at least somewhat by the precepts, of course, it's difficult to live by the precepts if you don't have control over your mind. And because most people don't have controls over their mind, and they're just basically enslaved by their passions and by their impulses. And so, that erupt so quickly from the unconscious that most people are not able to really control their outbursts. So people are always doing and saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I did it again." That's because they are not grounded and centered in order to be able to see those impulses. So everything essentially originates from the mind. So how do we reach the mind? And that is where the practice of meditation plays its important role. Because our thoughts and impulses originate deep within the unconscious mind. It means everything that we've ever done, seen, tasted, smelled, touched, thought about since we were a young child, basically is kind of remembered or imprinted within the nervous system. Those memories. That person did this to me, 25 years ago. I did that, and you can recall back to when you're about 5 years old. So many things. Of course, we also lose the memory because it gets overlaid with so much new stuff. But anyway, so but all of our reactions, even now, they are coming up from the unconscious. But because we're not centered in the body, we don't see them. Because we've lost that connection to the body, or the present moment, I should say. So in this context, when I'm talking about meditation, when I say the present moment, it's synonymous with the breathing body, because everything passes through this breathing body. Every sensation coming from the external world is coming through the nervous system that's affected by this happening within this shell of the breathing body. So that's why in the Buddhist teachings, the first step to being able to disentangle the tangle is to become mindful. That means aware of what you're doing and thinking now in the present moment, which are going to be the triggers for your reactions a second later, or 3 seconds later, or 2 minutes later. So learning how to get reconnected to the breathing body and the present moment. And also, because we've become disconnected from the body, we've lost that sensitivity, and we've lost the natural intelligence that the body has. And the way that we've lived, we've interfered with the natural intelligence of the body. As I was mentioning this morning, in the simple fact of doing standing meditation, right? So if you're doing standing meditation, you got this 100 or more pound body, towering over these little tiny feet, right? That are on the ground. It's like a tall, 300-foot tree, being blown in the wind like that. So anyway, even while just standing, the body is continually making subtle little adjustments not to fall over. Because it's doing, you're not thinking of how to do that. The body does it by itself. Now, that's an example of natural intelligence. Or if you cut yourself, the body knows how to stop the bleeding by clotting, and so many other examples. But we've interfered with the natural functions of the body by a lot of our bad habits, and also losing that sensitivity and centeredness in the body. We're ignoring the early warning signals of the body. And then we start doing things because of this pleasure and this addiction to pleasurable feeling. Unfortunately, we started doing things that are harmful for the body. So the typical example is a young teenager maybe starting to smoke, because they're tough guys in a neighborhood, they're smoking, want to be part of the crowd, so you kind of you start innocently, start to smoke. Then after a while, the body starts going, it's trying to tell you something, right? So you get up, start to light up another cigarette, and the body silently, it's trying to tell you, don't do that, don't do that. But the mind says, shut up. And so many other things, like maybe addiction to sweets and pastries, the body's already got, except if you have something like diabetes, or so you're gonna die if you eat too much sugar. People get, this that addiction, just like the baby's first sweet, right? I mean, that started everything. That was the descent from heaven, the fall from heaven. That first sweet, and that desire for the pleasurable feeling. So because we've lost that sensitivity, and then we've interfered with the body's natural functions, now we can't heal ourselves. We have to go to a doctor to ask the doctor what's wrong with us. Whether it's a psychologist or a regular MD. But anyway, apart from that. So meditation itself is very interesting. Of course, meditation is an English word, but it comes from the word bhavana. Usually it's translated from the word called bhavana, which means to grow and develop, but grow and to develop certain positive qualities. So like the samatha bhavana is called the meditation on developing concentration, or tranquility meditation, or metta meditation, cultivating thoughts of metta and friendliness in your mind, or vipassana meditation, developing insights meditation. So basically it's training the mind. Now, the word meditation, the first four letters of meditation, what does it spell? M-E-D-I? So what other words begin with M-E-D-I? Medication or medicine? Okay, medicine. Another one? Mediation. So what does a mediator do? He sits between arguing people, right, and tries to solve their differences. Or even media. The media, right? They're sitting between truth and falsehoods, or different types of falsehoods or truths, and trying to sort out, the truth. So what that implies is something being in the middle. It's a bridge between the opposites. So meditation actually is a very appropriate word for the practice. Because in meditation, we're also keeping our mind in the middle. In the middle of what? There's three main dualities. The first one, we're keeping it in the middle between the past and the future. So we choose an object that's occurring in the present moment, a natural object, such as the breathing and the body. And that's what the Buddha chose for his beginning point in meditation. Because I've already mentioned, all problems are problems connected with the past and the future. So when you focus on an object that's in the present moment and just remembering it, then the mind will stop thinking about other objects of the past and the future, and all the worry and excitement, greed and hatred that's connected with those objects of the past and the future, all that subsides. And the nervous system can then get back to a more peaceful, centered vibration, which is happiness, or at least it's without so much suffering and anxiety. So the practice of meditation basically is keeping the mind in the middle. So the past and the future is the starting point of that middle. Then there's another dualities. What are the other two dualities I've already mentioned? Pleasure and pain, right? So the mind is always going out to pleasure and it's trying to recoil from pain. So in meditation, we also keep the mind in the middle and try not to react to pain and try not to react to get carried away by pleasurable feelings and so on. Keeping the mind in the middle. And then there's one other duality. Me and the other. Me here and the world out there. In the struggle that that ensues. So those are the three main sort of dualities that are a part of learning how to disentangle that tangle. So the mind is tangled up in the past and the future, the memories of the past and the future, trying to recreate the past and the future, or trying to at least recreate pleasurable feelings or memories of the past. And many times that's has led to people's deaths. You know, they might have done something 10 or 15 years ago and they got a lot of pleasure from it. Oh, now I want to do it now, and I want to climb Mount Everest again, you know, or whatever. And they die in the attempt. Even that happened to me in my own experience in a different way, not climbing Mount Everest, but something else. I'm not going to go into that. But clinging to the past can cost you your life. That means if you're trying to recreate memories of the past, because the past is gone and you can't really recreate the past. And the future has not yet come. A future is just a thought in your mind. But people spend a lot of time planning the future and trying to control the future, and then that particular object or experience never came to pass. So they wound up spending a lot of time anxiety about expecting something to happen and it doesn't happen. So they've wasted a lot of time basically for nothing. Although that's not, sure, we can think about the future and plan the future, and a lot of those things may come to pass. So that's not denying that you shouldn't, think about the future, but trying to control it too much because we can't control it because of the law of impermanence. So anyway, that's why learning how to get regrounded to the breathing body and to reconnect with sort of the present moment, how to live more, feel that vibration of the present moment, and not being so easily drawn out into the thinking about the future or dwelling on the past. It's simply we haven't been taught to do anything else since we're a young kid. We hear our parents complaining about the past or the future and trying to control everything. And, oh, you better go take piano lessons and learn this, and you're going to grow up and you're going to be this and that. And now, I'm not criticizing that. A lot of that is very good, but still, it's we've accumulated these type of habits of thinking we can control everything. And to a certain extent we can, but when things don't go our way, we get upset. And then we think we're a failure if we couldn't, meet our parents' expectations of what they wanted us to be or anybody else. So anyway, so in the Buddhist teaching of how to begin that process of disentangling the tangle, it's about getting reconnected and grounded in the present moment in the breathing body. So that's really the first stage, in which we can then more clearly feel what is happening to us, like the pleasurable feelings and the painful feelings, especially the painful feelings, as I mentioned. So in meditation, one of the biggest hindrances for people to meditate are the pains they're going to experience when trying to sit for a long period of time, especially if you're trying to sit on the floor in a cross-legged position. But even sitting in a chair, you're still going to get pains of one kind or another too. And that's inevitable. And actually, that's a very important part of the training. More than just gaining peace of mind, that's a very superficial aspect of meditation. Just thinking you want to blot out all the external things and just enter into some peaceful state. Now, one might be able to do that for a short period of time, but it's not really the main purpose of the meditation. It's about learning how to keep the mind in the middle, in the midst of pain, in the midst of disturbing things, because that's where you're living in the world, right? You can't go around with earplugs and blind and things up your nose so that you can't smell or taste or hear the world. So the Buddha understood that. So it's about changing and conditioning our inner reaction to the world, not trying to control the world because we can't control it. But a lot of people want to control others, don't they? They want to control the world, even religions. If everyone was a Christian, the world would be a perfect place. If everyone was a Hindu, if everyone was a Buddhist, if everyone was a Muslim, or if everyone was a communist, everyone, everybody wants everybody to act like they do, but everybody has the same opinions. So it's never going to happen. So instead of trying to change the world to suit our wishes, we have to change ourselves to suit reality, to be able to abide in that harmony. So that is the view of the Buddha, or the view of the Dhamma, in the practice of of the Dhamma. But it really begins with, on the one hand, learning how to live by the skillful conduct. But unless you meditate and develop mindfulness, you won't be able to probably successfully control those urges and impulses to want to do those unskillful actions. So it's the mindfulness that's important. And mindfulness means knowing what is happening, what is coming through your senses. So being mindful when you're starting to go to sleep. Being mindful of that itch that's building up, or a pain that's building up in the body, to be kind of alerted to it. Say, okay, this pain is there, okay, relax. Maybe it's not that bad, just relax around it, endure that. You train yourself to gradually endure pains or discomforts. Or maybe it's a loud sound that somebody, and you're thinking, they're disturbing my meditation. You're getting agitated. But it's just hearing, right? It's just sound vibrations. So much of the mindfulness practice is about learning to confront and being aware of the incoming stimulations, and knowing that we don't have to react to everything all the time. We don't have to go out and think about everything, or worry about everything. Because of impermanence, a lot of those things are going to change that we don't, in the long run, have to worry about. If you can count up all the time that you worried and fretted and obsessed with either wanting to get something that never happened, or get away from something that also never happened, you'd be amazed. So anyway, so that's why in the Buddhist teachings of meditation, he outlined the meditation practice in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And the first one is getting centered in the body and using the breath for that. So the first part of the meditation instructions were about sitting, keeping the back straight. You mentioned why that's important. And then being mindful, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. And you use the breath to sort of find the body. And then once you've found the body, to be grounded and centered in that, and start feeling the sensations that are coming and going in the body. And that then helps you to observe your thoughts more clearly. Because when we're more centered in the body, when a thought or urge comes up, we can see it more objectively. Oh, an urge to move. I don't really need to move. And so you kind of let go of that urge, and you keep sitting, and the urge disappears, and you're perfectly fine. So it's our mind is always creating mountains out of molehills and overreacting to things. And again, that is how we've allowed our mind to get so entangled with the world. So, friends, I think it might be enough for this talk, and we're going to be talking more about these things as we next couple of days. But I just wanted to kind of give an idea of sort of what this inner tangle and outer tangle how it has evolved, and how the Buddha approached it, that the way to help to disentangling this tangle. Because many of the solutions in the modern world, giving you drugs and meditation to ease the pain or overcome your other problems, or they don't really get down to the deepest causes of our problems. They're meant to just remove the superficial symptoms. And then you think you're okay for a while, then little by little the things keep coming back. So, the Buddha took a different approach to that problem of, understanding and identifying what suffering is, and then understanding what the cause and how the suffering continues, and then how to begin disentangling or weakening the causes for the continuation of suffering in order to gradually attain a more stable state of well-being and sort of inner equilibrium. All right? So now we're going to take a few minutes to stand up, and then if you need to use the restroom, take a drink of water, and then we're going to do some standing awareness, and then maybe some walking, and then sitting down after you've given your legs a little break from sitting for so long. All right? So those of you who are tuned in over Zoom, you can also participate in this next meditation period if you like. Otherwise, we can see you tomorrow. So go ahead now and just mindfully stand up, stretch your legs.